Welcome to the Goal Podcast, news and commentary from Gun Owners Action League, your leading voice for the Massachusetts gun owner.
I'm Jeff across the table from Garrett. How we doing?
Good. What a weekend, huh?
Busy.
Busy. So we had a work party down the club, which that was my Saturday, and I was pretty tired from that. And then Sunday, we had our Freedom Rally in Quincy. That was awesome.
Yeah, you did a phenomenal job with that video, by the way.
Thank you.
And that
very
video
much.
is now up on Goal's YouTube page for
Thank
people
you.
who would like to see it.
Yeah, you can check it out. It was like, it was cool to be able to contribute some kind of small thing to the,
Yeah, but when you put that
thing.
kind of stuff together and it's the production and
Yeah,
a lot of work.
I appreciate that. So if you want to check it out. It's going to be on Goal's, like you said, it's on Goal's YouTube page, but I think they're going to upload it to the webpage as well. So check it out. So we're going to dive into details of the Freedom Rally a little bit later on. Also been expanding our reach, trying to expand our reach a little bit through social media channels. So we have the Facebook channel, which most people should know about by now. We've had it since we launched this. On Facebook at Goal Podcast MA. So it's all one word squished together. Goal Podcast MA. We talk about all of our releases there, but we also, pictures and other goings on there, so give us a follow. Related to Facebook, obviously, you can follow us on Instagram. We have an Instagram account. It's _goal_podcast on Instagram. _goal_podcast on Instagram. Follow us there. And, of course, that we announced just last time is our brand spanking new YouTube channel. We are at The Goal Podcast on YouTube. So episode audio will be going up there, but we're also going to be doing, other kinds of videos, tips, tricks, other content. So
maybe put some drills up there.
Yeah, do some drills, all kinds of fun
stuff. A little more
stuff.
content coming in 2024.
That's right. We're going to bring it.
Yeah, so go up in the search bar, @ The Goal Podcast, all together. Should be able to find it.
Give us a like. We're going to be those guys that go, smash that subscribe button.
Oh, God, no. Nope. No.
We got some news.
Oh, this is West Coast news. So.
West Coast. Well, we traditionally kind of go national and then kind of eventually narrow it down to Massachusetts stuff. So what's going on on the left coast?
Well, stupid is as stupid does.
That's in character. Yeah, that's definitely on brand.
Presidential hopeful, non-committal, whatever you want to call him, Gavin Newsom. Out of his nonsense, California has submitted a bill to amend the U.S. Constitution under Senate Joint Resolution 7, calling for a constitutional convention under Article 5 of the Constitution of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
What they would like to do is have a 28th Amendment, specifically to nullify the Second Amendment.
Yeah, of course. Now, I do a bit of background. I remember when he started making noises about this, right about the time people were starting to ask him whether or not he was going to run for president. So, go figure, right? He's a California governor. California is one of the worst, besides Massachusetts, as far as gun control legislation goes. And he's a complete hardcore anti-gunner, anti-civil rights person. So he come up with this nonsense. I remember him splashing it over the talk shows a couple of months ago, but it looks like he's put something together, something like sort of semi-official together.
So the pitch that they're pushing is to propose that the new amendment, a 28th Amendment, would do either or both of the following. And this is from their bill. To affirm that federal, state, and local governments may adopt public safety regulations limiting aspects of firearms, acquisition, possession,
yada, yada, yada.
so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Saying that such regulations are consistent with the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and the understanding that throughout American history, private individuals have possessed firearms for home defense, hunting, and recreational purposes. Casually leaves out self-defense.
Yeah, right.
You're not allowed to defend your life, just your property,
just your home,
hunting and recreational purposes, according to this bill. Recreational, so you can shoot for fun, but not for safety.
Yeah. Unless you're protecting your house.
The other part that they added in was to impose, as a matter of national policy, the following firearms regulations and prohibitions. So, 1, universal background checks as a prerequisite to purchase a firearm.
This is wording that he wants to add into the Constitution, folks. So go ahead. Keep the rest of it.
A prohibition on sales, loans, or other transfers of firearms to those under 21 years of age, subject to limited exceptions. So basically, like if you want to be a goon of the state, they'll arm you.
You're cool.
They'll arm you on the
You're
taxpayer dime.
You're cool.
A minimum waiting period after the purchase or acquisition of a firearm before that firearm may be delivered to the buyer or acquirer.
Wow.
So a mandatory waiting period. And a prohibition on the private possession of, their term, assault weapons and, quote, other weapons of war.
Like a pump-action Remington 870.
Trench gun?
Trench gun. Yeah, that weapon of war.
So that they would like one or both of those kind of chunks to become the 28th Amendment to the United States Bill of Rights.
This guy's an idiot. Obviously, this is going nowhere. Obviously, it's just stupidity and fluff.
Well, the best part of this bill, obviously the whole thing is a joke, but they actually go so far in this bill to say that the application is for a limited constitutional convention, and saying it does not grant Congress the authority to call a constitutional convention for any other purpose other than those set forth in this bill, and that the application for a constitutional convention should be voided if ever used at any stage to consider any other constitutional amendments or any other on any other subjects.
That's like so. I don't know. I wonder if that's like boilerplate for this kind of thing. You know, I don't know if there's like a. Obviously, the intent there would be to say, well, since we're all together, let's get,
let's hash out a couple other things. Considering all, the ground that Newsom, him and his political allies have lost in the last couple of years, particularly in the face of the Bruin decision.
It galls me that the California population is still like, yeah, this guy's cool. Let's keep him in as governor,
Well, it's a perfect example of why absolute democracy doesn't work, because you have 2 or 3 counties like LA and, those couple of cities.
Alameda County, Los Angeles County. Completely
outvote the entire rest of the state. Yeah. The rest, there's a good chunk of California that's pretty darn
conservative.
conservative.
There's a huge red area in California, all through the Central Valley. All that area is deep red, but you get outvoted by the coast.
You have those pockets of outrageous population density, and that tends to drive the general election. Mm-hmm. And of course, for those that are in power, they don't think that the majority can ever be wrong.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
But
that's the fallacy of pure democracy.
Yeah. Now they're trying to make hay about it. But, there's methods for amending the U.S. Constitution. There's
and it's not easy.
By design.
It's not supposed to be
Because, again,
easy.
It's not supposed to be a country that's run by mob rule.
And it's not supposed to be some idiot has a political bugaboo and he wants to get elected president. Therefore, he's just going to pass a constitutional amendment and ride his way into the White House on the coattails of that stupidity. So it's not supposed to be easy.
Yeah, so there's
to amend the Constitution. That's why we've only done it a couple dozen times.
Right. There's only 2 main real avenues that this would end up happening. You either need a 2/3 vote in both houses of Congress.
Yeah.
Which highly doubtful at this point.
No chance. No chance.
And then once that would be, presuming that would go through, then it would have to be ratified by 3/4 of the state legislatures. Or you have this national constitutional convention called by 2/3 of the state's legislatures, and then still has to be ratified by 3/4 of the states.
Yeah.
So considering that 25 states are constitutional
carry now, 26.
It totals 27 if you add permitless carry to that whole mix.
Yeah.
So more than half the country has no state firearms laws.
Right.
And I really, really doubt that they're
they're even going to get the 2/3 to call it, much less the 3/4 to ratify it.
Missouri and Texas and Idaho and Montana, that they're going to jump on board and say, who really should tell us what to do?
California. The governor of
Gavin
California.
Newsom.
Yeah. It's nonsense. Yeah. I mean, this is, it's supposed to be hard to amend the Constitution, but the Article 5 Constitutional convention does exist as a mechanism. That's what we'd like. If we're ever going to get term limits, that's probably how we'd have to do it. But yeah, he knows it's nonsense. It's complete malarkey.
Yeah.
He knows it's malarkey. It's a
Yeah.
political stunt. And
he's
honestly,
selling
there should
snake
be
oil
like
to his believers.
there really ought to be ramifications for that kind of stuff. Because that's, this is our lives and our freedom that you're just playing with for political
Oh,
points.
believe me, if you put a bill forward that says politicians can be held responsible for wasting taxpayer dollars.
Oh, no. We can't have that. Baloney. Anyway, listen
That
for
would win
more.
a popular vote for sure.
Listen for more nonsense from this blowhard. He's trying to get himself elected president, so I'm sure this isn't the end of this.
But speaking of holding governments accountable,
Yes.
DC is
Yeah.
having to shell out some cash. Ironically, taxpayer dollars, so you have to sue the government to get your own money back that they get to skim off the top of. But they owe some people some money, don't they?
DC is settling. What is it? They're settling for $5.1 million to be distributed to gun owners in a class action lawsuit in order to settle arrests and confiscations that were found to be unconstitutional under Bruin. So when the Bruin decision came down, a lot of these nonsense confiscations and arrests and so forth got thrown out, and now they're down to settling with a class action. But, it's typical of a class action suit. They're expecting that something like 3,000 people are likely to qualify for the class actions. So,
And then you're going to have to pay taxes on that as income too.
by the time the lawyers get paid, I expect that people will probably get like a couple $100, maybe enough to buy a gun to replace the one that got taken away from them. Who knows?
Doubtful.
But the point is, the DC has to pay out. Not that it, again, like you said though, not that it's going to hurt them any. It just hurts the taxpayer.
Right.
But-
Well, they're trying to gain more on the tax side because yet again they propose the 1,000% excise tax on arms and ammunition. Now this is proposed in the federal government.
Yep.
U.S. Rep. Don Beyer, Democrat, Virginia, 8th District, 24 other House Democrats signed on to this garbage. Proposed.
Wait. What party is it that hates poor people like this?
Oh, how dare you? How dare you say something to that effect? But this would be a proposed tax and would tax, again, put the scare quotes around it, assault weapons and high-capacity magazines with a 1,000% excise tax in a bid to reduce access to guns across the country. Trying to price out poor people.
Yeah, basically. Yep, price out poor people. Only rich people in governments will have guns.
So what people need to understand about that is the tax is just making it so poor people can't afford it. That's really all it is.
That's exactly what it is. That's the whole thing behind the so-called legalized, legal issues aside, the whole mandated insurance thing, exorbitant licensing fees, all the stuff that Bruin said you actually can't do. The stuff that they tried to do is just to price poor people out of the market.
Yeah, and it's all about just permission. Like I'm sure you remember back in the day, parking ticket in Boston was $25.
Oh yeah,
Parking at Fenway was $40.
Yeah,
so get the ticket, park wherever you want. It costs $25.
Yeah, it's a cost of
doing
doing business.
You can still have all of those things. You just have to pay the government a bunch of money.
Yeah.
It's not saying you can't have it. Not saying there's no increased
Cynical
penalty
nonsense.
for any criminal that's caught with one.
Right.
It's just saying, hey, it's
If
paid.
you want to do it legally, you're going to pay through the nose, and that's their rationale for saying, oh, it's constitutional because it's just a tax. It doesn't actually,
Yeah. Now this, I seriously, this stuff, it's all, in my opinion, a lot of song and dance to, get people to give them more money for their campaigns.
Of course it is.
What would concern me now is the pattern of government agencies just deciding to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Now with the IRS, with its $80 billion budget increase and supposedly 80,000+ new agents, I wouldn't think of it outside the realm of possibility that they would just say, well, this is just a new thing and find a way to redefine their own tax code.
Yeah.
To then implement it with all of these new armed agents who had to sign on to use deadly force.
State is going to state. Yep. So I think that one's a heavy lift too. I don't think that's going anywhere either. It's such nonsense. All of the political posturing and the fluffing themselves up as, we believe in rights, but except for people that we don't like.
Well, and that's where you find out, That's when you have the gun shop that says, "Hey, you can buy this bottle of water for $699 and get a free Smith and Wesson with
Get
it."
a free gun, yeah. So your tax on that gun is $1. So eyes on that. I want to invite people briefly to and reflect on articles that come out, and we've talked about it here a number of times, I believe, over the last 2 or 3 years or so, and it's the idea that's come out in the news since 2020-ish, 2021, that have been blaring the headlines that firearms are the greatest killer of children in the country. It's repeated over and over and over
that's
again.
the new
right.
bumper sticker.
It's
for
been
gun control.
Debunked a million times by all kinds of different people. What I would like to impress upon people to do is do your own research. The data is available from the CDC, right? The data, whatever it is, whether you trust it or not, but the data that's been used in these so-called studies is available to the public. So you don't have to take somebody's word for it. Go do your own work. Go do your own research. Check out CDC. It's the Wonder system, okay? You can set up searches for causes of death by demographic, by age, by location even. And when you run the numbers, it becomes very, very obvious that all of those headlines that say that, firearms are the number one killer of kids in this country are basically bunk. They are biased upwards to include like 19-year-olds, things like that. They're obviously biased towards older kids. Why? Because the older kids are the ones that are old enough to start engaging in criminal activity like gangs and stuff like that. So all of that violence almost exclusively happens within the 16 to 19-year-old cohort.
Yeah. Anytime you're looking at statistical categories, you have to really dive into how they're defining the groups.
Yes.
And what data they're adding to the pile. So, yeah, you're right. They lump everybody from 0 to 18 or 19 in as quote unquote children. What they're also including in this is they're including accidents, they're including suicides, they're including homicides. Anytime a firearm is in any way involved with any death, they're wrapping that all together into one giant category. So if you separate out firearms accidents, it's way down the list.
Yes, it is.
It's borderline irrelevant.
Yes. Yeah, it's statistically insignificant. And it's also, you also listen to the words when you read headlines and articles about this stuff. Listen to the words that they use. They say that firearms are responsible for all these deaths. Firearms is an object, right? But they compare it to motor vehicle accidents, which is an event. Okay? It's a semantic difference to say that the firearm is responsible for these deaths, whatever they are, whereas the motor vehicle accident, which is the event, are responsible for those deaths. So they're not saying that cars cause deaths. They're saying that guns cause deaths.
They're attributing a mental state, a responsibility to something that cannot have a mental state.
Yeah. And it's ratiocination. It's like massaging the words to get the end that you want. So do your own research. Check out CDC Wonder System. You can look at the numbers yourself.
Yeah. The last I looked, Pew Research polls for children and teens below the age of 18, 60% of all quote unquote firearms related deaths were homicides. More than half.
Yep.
So this is someone holding a firearm, looking at, as they're terming it, a child, and pulling the trigger on purpose. Now
almost exclusively, that is gang-related inner-city crime.
Almost
always. Let's face it. Almost always, that's what it is. And let me clue you in on something. Those kids don't have gun licenses, and they're not submitting themselves to background checks, and they're not buying their guns from gun stores.
Oh, it's definitely not. And even within those, I think it's even starting to border on unfair to just say inner city violence, because it's really these super concentrated, small pockets of extreme crime activity.
You're right.
Where you're talking an area of
a few
6-7 square blocks where it's just nonstop, to the point where Chicago, is it the mayor of Chicago or St. Louis? I can't even remember right now off the top of my head. They put out a public statement asking that gang members only shoot at each other between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m.
Because they're less likely to have collateral damage.
Yeah, so shoot at each other at
regular
night.
people will be in their houses. So, right, as long as you're capping each other
but the thought
on the
process,
off hours, you're good to go.
Their thought process is if they put the responsible, non-law breaking citizens under house arrest for 12 hours a day.
Yeah, right.
Let street justice, let the
let the purge,
people run wild.
Let the purge happen.
But
so nonsense.
But
anyway.
folks like John Lott have studied it, to no end, and it's. I mean, they can do data analytics now and look at the networking and associations between people and predict with stunning accuracy frequency of crimes, when crime spikes are going to happen, and it's literally in these super tight little pockets that people just don't want to tackle. And I beg anyone from that gun control crowd to explain to me why is the pistol that's in my safe a problem, but not the person that's out on the street committing the crime.
Yeah, because it's the same old song and dance, right? It's easier to attribute the problem to the object, because banning an object is easy, but dealing with criminal intent and mental issues, that's hard. So we don't want to do that.
Well, that would require work, and that would require a risk of failure.
Right.
Because, we've talked about it before.
We've been around this.
They can try to put the law in place, and if they put it in place and it doesn't work, they can say, oh, we need more laws, we need more funding, we need more money, we need more power.
Yeah.
It
always boils down to that.
If they don't get the law in place, well, then, it's everybody else's fault.
That's
it's
right.
never their fault for the decision.
We tried. All right. So anyway, do your own research. Remember, CDC Wonder System, it's out there. It's public information. Don't let somebody else interpret it for you. Go do your own research and come to your own conclusions. So U.S. v. Rahimi. It's the current Supreme Court case that we've been talking about. We talked about it last episode, actually. This is currently before the Supreme Court. The U.S. government is seeking to strike down a Fifth Circuit ruling that says that prohibitions on possession of guns by subjects of domestic violence restraining orders is unconstitutional.
Yeah, we talked about it briefly last episode, and this is going before the Supreme Court. They start up in October, right? October 2nd?
Yep. So we expect to hear it, get it heard in the fall, and probably get a decision kind of like Burn, probably June, July. It'll probably hit the end of the session.
Yeah, and this one's
It could be...
It's not a difficult decision if you can isolate out the individuals involved, in my opinion. But.
Right. Well, that was it. And that was my major hesitation with this case is that, the fact that the plaintiffs here are not very, sympathetic characters. But anyway, besides all that, it was interesting because the ACLU, of all people, has filed an amicus brief supporting the government's position. Of course, right? As expected, they're supporting the government's position.
God, remember when they were nonpartisan?
I remember that.
That was
a long time ago, yeah.
Back when principles mattered.
But interestingly, the brief included language that says that while such prohibitions on the subjects of DVROs should be considered legal under the Bruin test, which we don't agree with, they said that the government shouldn't be granting itself too much power to restrict the Second Amendment rights of people. So that raises eyebrows, right?
We agree with you, but we don't.
This is from the organization that lists all of the Bill of Rights as individual liberties except for one.
Of course.
Can you guess which one? Yeah. Right. So anyway, the quote from the ACLU is: "The United States seeks reversal by asserting sweeping government power to restrict the Second Amendment rights of anyone who is not a law-abiding responsible citizen. But the court can and should reverse on a much narrower ground without granting the government the broad authority it claims, namely that there is ample historical support for restricting gun rights of persons individually determined to pose a specific threat to others." So in other words, they're saying, yes, we agree with the government that these restrictions are constitutional, but while you're saying that, you shouldn't also be saying that you just have the power to do this, this broad sweeping ban on people. So it's kind of like, obviously we're not in the tank for the ACLU on this, but they've said something here that is interesting in the fact that it almost agrees with our position. Almost. Tangentially.
Yeah. Well, the big argument that I think Rahimi is trying to make is that the burden of proof and what has to be proven in a court for a civil issue is a lot different than a criminal issue. And at some point you have to draw a line in the sand and say, these are the rules and this is the foundational stuff that needs to happen to take someone's civil rights away. And this is a civil right.
Yeah,
there's no debate about that. Can we now take civil rights away from people for civil issues?
It's a due process question, right?
And like most things is, your principles only matter if you're willing to stand by them when they're not convenient. This is not a convenient time. This is someone that is not particularly likable. But the question is, can you take someone's rights away without their day in court, without due process of law fitting the legal standards that have been the legal standards for 250 years?
And the answer to that is no, you can't, no matter how distasteful you find the individual to be. That's how rights work. You have your rights, like Mike Harris likes to say, you have all of your rights until you have proven that you need to have them taken away. You don't take rights away, preemptively. That's not how rights work.
Yeah. Now notice they're saying that, this person is subject to a domestic violence restraining order. They shouldn't be allowed to have firearms. They're not saying that they can't be out in public. They're not saying that they can't vote, that they can't speak freely, that they are no longer subject to
that's right. All of the other things, yeah.
They're just saying that they only lose this right in particular.
Yeah.
So that's what I think the argument that they're making, and it's
like it's so weird,
argument.
Isn't it? Yeah.
If this person is such a threat that they cannot be out in public with their rights, my question would be, why haven't you charged them with a crime and taken their rights away?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they're such a danger to other people, then what are they doing walking the streets? Yeah. So anyway, interesting bit there. Let's bring it into Massachusetts. Even in the whole frou-frou that's going on with HD 4420, which, by the way, as we record this, it's approaching the end of August, so the legislature's still out of session.
Expecting to be back in the next week
or so, yeah, whenever they decide to get back around to it. So we are watching.
When they decide after 2 years of shutting the building down.
Isn't that wonderful?
When do you guys want to go back to work?
I don't know.
Maybe,
maybe
take another week.
Maybe whatever. You know what? As far as I'm concerned, they can take the rest of their lives off.
As long as they forfeit the pay.
Yeah. So anyway, during July, we did get a new Approved Firearms Roster.
Yeah, there's been some updates, some firearms that have been added.
Yeah, and again, we touched this just because it's fun. It doesn't really have a whole lot of impact on people. Remember that that the rosters don't have anything to do with what you can own, only what dealers can sell you. So it's not really a roster for people. It's a roster for dealers. And there's all kinds of other things like the Attorney General stuff and the other shooting rosters and all this nonsense.
Secret squirrel lists.
Right. All that stuff. Doesn't matter. We go through this because it's fun and because we get to talk about guns. So first up on the list is a variant of the M9. So from Beretta, M9A4G, which I'm pretty sure the G is the decocked version of the Beretta M9. This one is optics ready, comes with a beveled magwell, and in your favorite color, flat dark earth. So the Centurion version of this Beretta pistol is already listed on the roster.
Yeah, so this is more of a...
Yeah, so this is the decocked version of it. Yeah.
Minor difference. Charter Arms, the 14423. It's a 2.5-inch revolver in 44 special.
44, but that's going to be snappy.
That's going to...
2.5-inch barrel?
I wouldn't want to shoot it. But you don't see much in 44 anymore. There's very few 44 Magnum, 44 special shooters anymore. Hugely popular, the Dirty Harry era.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody wanted the 44 Magnum, and then they shot it.
Do you feel lucky? It's like, no, not really. If I'm shooting this thing, it actually kind of hurts a little bit.
Awesome. Good. Now, if you can get a lever action rifle in 44 mag.
Oh, that'd be smooth.
Oh, yeah.
That could work because that's got some mass. Yeah, I like that idea.
Get your body behind it. But 2.5-inch, I said, to me, that would be a snubby.
Yeah.
2.5-inch,
I think that's a
2.5-inch revolver in 44 special.
Yeah, so it's a variant of the existing 14420, which is already on the roster. So next up, we got a pair of FN 509 variants. First one is a long slide version called the 509 LS. This one's going to street. Well, I don't know what it's going to street for, but MSRP is $1,629. That's right in line for an FN pistol. This is long slide 509 variant with a cut slide, flat trigger, and optics ready. And they swear that their trigger breaks right at 90 degrees. That's what they say anyway.
So they're going with flat that way.
Flat that way, yeah. So it's flat face, and as soon as you pass 90 degrees, it's a crisp break, they say.
Oh.
So the other one is the 509cc Edge, which is the compact variant of this, with also the cut slide, optics ready, flat trigger. But this one's got an integrated compensator. So.
For the punishing recoil of 9mm. But if, for example, you had an issue, hand dexterity, hand strength, arthritis, or whatever, having a comp to push back against that muzzle flip.
Yeah, it's about getting that second shot on target, right?
Then we have another version of a Glock. Shadow Systems MR920 Elite. This one's going to be, somewhere in that $900 to $1,000 range. Chambered in 9, stainless barrel, stainless slide. They are using an integrated universal optics mount.
This was interesting to me. So typically you see a cut slide that has a plate that you remove and then you put an adapter plate or something, or it has a whole pattern for certain...
It's designed around the Trigicon
yeah.
footprint, which is what HoloSun uses, or it's designed around a couple other standard footprint patterns. Yeah. But it's supposed to, still work with your Glock 19 holsters. Some minor differences, but, hey, polymer striker-fired 9mm pistol.
It's never been done before. At any rate, this is the first Shadow Systems entry onto the roster, so we'll see what else they come up with.
Then we got some new offerings, variant offerings from 6 Hour.
From 6 Hour, naturally.
The 226 and 229. The RM Legion coming out with a couple single action only options.
Yep.
There are, variants of what's already on the roster. And then there's a 365 XL Rose for $900 for the ladies.
For the ladies,
according according to SIG.
So it's your standard 365 XL, but the controls are rose gold colored.
Not actual rose gold.
This one, if you look at the marketing material, it's got Lena Miculek on it. It's supposed to be, the gun for the ladies. Yeah. I don't know.
Yep. Extra $100 or so for the quote unquote ladies model for the gun that you have to have concealed on you anyway.
Right. There is another 6 Hour coming out, though, 365. This one is their 9mm BXR3P Massachusetts, supposedly, quote unquote compliant, which just means they set a skew aside for Massachusetts. But this one is the Dash MS. It's manual safety on B365 for this one. So if you're into that,
which we can put a pin in that and come back at the end of the list.
Yeah.
About manual safeties on carry guns.
Yeah, right. That's a whole nother discussion. Yeah.
Which, so then there's a couple from Smith & Wesson. So the Smith & Wesson 43C, it's a 22 J-frame revolver, hammerless, little snub nose.
Little snubby,
and 22 long rifle.
A little on the freaking spendy side for something like that.
MSRP $760 for a 22 caliber
for a J-frame, for
22
an airlight
caliber
J-frame. Sounds a little rich to me.
But being a Smith & Wesson revolver, it's overbuilt for the job probably.
Well, yeah. Well, they're marketing it. They're marketing it as a carry, as a self-defense carry. So that's another discussion about having a self-defense carry in 22 long rifle. But anyway, they're marketing it as a carry. So I don't know. $750 still sounds a little rich to me.
And then a total opposite end of the spectrum.
They're breaking out the hog leg.
Smith & Wesson 350. So this is going to go. They're suggesting $1,600 for this guy.
This is an X-frame, man.
But this is a 7-shot X-frame. So
big
frame revolver from Smith & Wesson, chambered in 350 Legend.
Big sucker. So if you don't know what 350 Legend is, this was designed. It was released in 2019. Introduced in 2019. It was designed as a hunting round, a rifle round, actually, designed for states that have bottleneck restrictions where you can't shoot things like 223
specific calibers for specific game.
Right, where you can't shoot like 6.5 Creed or 30-06 or whatever. So it's kind of like designed as a hunting round for those states. And then Smith & Wesson comes along and chambers a freaking X-frame revolver in it.
Put in a handgun. But there are people that enjoy the challenge of hunting with a handgun.
Yep. Go you.
And you have to balance out the power and performance of the round with the size of the firearm that you were shooting it from.
Yeah, it's a freaking hog leg. It's a 7.5-inch barrel, I think. It's pretty good. It's going to be a
barrel. Big gun, and that's going to be a hell of a wallop.
That's
not as bad as the Smith & Wesson 500 that everybody's familiar with.
Granted.
But that's gonna have a little oomph.
Yeah, it's gonna have some sauce on it.
And then wrapping up the list editions, there are 3 variants of the Ruger Wrangler.
Yeah.
The single action 22 caliber, that little 22 LR.
Yeah, which are
revolver.
actually great little guns. I mean, you're not like a huge single action guy, but they're like really fun to shoot. They're awesome little guns.
Yeah, great gun to teach anybody with.
Oh yeah.
Single action,
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
No recoil.
Can't go wrong.
But this new Wrangler, the new Wrangler variants are called the Super Wrangler.
Yeah.
And what it does, it comes with a cylinder chambered for 22 long rifle, and you now have a second cylinder that will come with the gun chambered for 22 Magnum.
Nice. There you go. I don't know, what do you make a varmint pistol out of that?
I'm not really sure, but the 22 Magnum, I think, is a underrated round.
That's got some juice in it too. Yeah.
It's got a little heat on it. I mean, it's meant for as a varmint cartridge.
Yeah.
Small game, gophers, groundhogs kind of stuff. But it shoots well. Not a ton of recoil.
No.
So if
even the Magnum,
if you were going to go with a 22 caliber firearm for personal protection, I would say lean towards 22 mag over 22 long rifle.
Sure.
But talking about the Smith & Wesson 43C, 22 LR for carry, for concealed carry.
I might almost prefer to have yeah, right.
Better than nothing.
Better than nothing.
I would take that.
I mean, I'm not going to carry a single action revolver.
If you gave me the option between pocket knife and this 43C in 22, I would take the 43C in 22.
Well, yeah.
Again, designed,
but given a choice,
that's
between
designed
that
around someone with
and...
a physical limitation that precludes them from shooting a
yes.
more standardized cartridge.
Something is certainly better than nothing. Yeah.
And we put a pin in it before, but talking about manual safety.
Oh, yes. Right on.
Manual safety on a carry gun, yay or nay?
For me, nay. Personally. But I'm not like religious about it. I'm not going to go, oh, you have a manual safety on your gun, you're going to die. That's not, I'm like personal preference. As long as you train with it, go do your thing. But for me, I'm pretty old and I prefer to have as few steps as possible. As few things to remember as possible. I get why people carry manual safety. I certainly get it, right? But it's just not my thing.
Yeah, for me, it's a yes on single action guns if you're going to carry cocked and locked.
Sure.
So if you're carrying a 1911, a
if
Staccato,
you're carrying condition, right.
Wilson Combat EDCX. If you want to carry something on that kind of trigger, then manual safety is perfect.
Oh, sure.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
I don't really necessarily buy into the whole idea that you can't operate a personal defense gun with a safety.
Sure, I don't either.
Because
if you train it, though, you'll be fine.
Every rifle shooting class I go to, any AR class, you're running that safety all day long.
Every time, yep.
To me, I don't envision the logic saying that I can absolutely for sure do it with a rifle, no problem, right-handed, left-handed.
But I can't do it with a...
but you absolutely cannot do it with a pistol.
Yeah, right.
But again, it's an extra step.
Mm-hmm.
Most safeties on pistols are not, in my opinion, designed very well. They're very flat. They're hard to hit. They're very stiff. Where
if you miss it, then you're not getting
on
the
that
shot
typical
off.
1911 style, or on the Beretta M9, it's this big giant paddle that's pretty
giant
darn hard
lever.
to miss.
Yes, yeah.
And you're pushing it in the direction that's consistent with what your thumb's going to be doing on a drawstring anyway. Right. So if that's the choice you go with, just understand it is a step that has to be now performed between that gun coming out of the holster and being presented on the target. But
and you got to train it. You have
to train it. You got to be good with it.
So new roster. We'll see how long we're able to buy anything on it.
All goes away if 4420 goes into place.
Right. You and I spent the better part of Sunday at the Goal Freedom Celebration rally in Quincy
You,
on
me,
Sunday.
and hundreds and hundreds of
almost
people.
300 other people, as I believe it to be true. So we met at the Boston Marriott Quincy. We had a huge ballroom there, stage, 2 giant screens, bunch of like 15 speakers. We had a huge, like a full program, engaging people. It was awesome. It was really an awesome time. Every single person that I talked to after the event was like, "This is great. This is
I mean, you can't go wrong with good food and a bar."
Right?
In a room with like-minded, responsible, awesome Second Amendment advocates.
Yeah.
And I count every person there as a Second Amendment advocate.
Because they stepped up and came to the thing.
There were people that couldn't join, so we had video messages from Clint Macro, Nikki Gozer, who's from Crime Prevention Research Center.
Yep.
Michael Sedini from Walk the Talk America.
Yeah, we got to get him on the podcast.
David Coy, NRA Second Vice President. Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense Firearms Company.
Out in like Idaho or somewhere. He's way the hell out west, yeah.
John Petrolino, the Penn Patriot, who we're going to have on the show coming up.
Yes.
And Cam Edwards, Cam & Co. podcast.
The man himself. What a great guy that guy is, yeah.
And that was just the people who couldn't make it.
Right, and then we had a bunch of people speaking in person. Jim, obviously.
So, yeah, Jim opens, Carrie Ann did the national anthem, phenomenal job. Jim spoke, Carrie Ann, Charlie Cook, Patrick Collins, CEO of the Gun Food.
The Gun Food, yeah, he's an ammo supplier. Yeah, he's a fun guy to talk to.
Boston native, now lives down south.
Yeah. His claim to fame in the rally was that he used to be Mariano's paper boy, I think. I used to deliver papers in Quincy. But so he moved to America and then started selling ammo.
Holly Sullivan, Connecticut Citizens Defense League, DCP state delegate.
Yep.
Legislative advisor. Jared Yanis, Guns and Gadgets, had him on the show. Need to have him on again.
Yep. You know him, you love him.
Phenomenal. Amanda Suffolcool, regional director for DC Project, Eye on Target Radio, NRA board member. Jim closed it out. But Toby Leary.
Oh my God, that dude knocked it out of the park.
Barn burner of a speech.
Unbelievable. That dude, he had people on their feet. Like halfway through his speech, this dude's getting a standing ovation.
I don't even want to begin to try to paraphrase what he said, but man, talk about inspiring to know that there are people like him in the Second Amendment corner that are not going to back down.
And you want to talk about somebody who has skin in the game. I mean, we all have skin in the game, right? But that dude has his entire livelihood wrapped up in the Second Amendment here. 4420 passes, he's like poor. He's out of his livelihood.
Firearms is his business.
That's his business, and that's how he feeds his family. And he's like stepping up there and saying, "You know what? I'm done complying with this nonsense." Watch for highlights. We're going to put like a highlight reel together and see if we can post it so we can get some of these comments out. But that dude lit the place on fire.
Yeah, if you weren't there, you missed a hell of an event.
He really did. It was a great time. Great time.
One of the announcements at this Freedom Celebration.
Yeah, I closed out the show with it.
State House Rally.
Yes, upcoming. Mark your calendars.
Wednesday, September 27th.
Yep, time to be determined.
I know people are going to say it's a weekday, it's a work day.
It's always like that, though.
Here's the deal.
Yep.
There's no one there on the weekends. The legislators don't work on the weekends.
There's barely anybody there during the week.
If you want to voice your opinion to the people, to the people in that building that make decisions, you have to go during office hours.
You just have to. You just gotta. That's how this stuff works, folks. So yes, mark your calendars. More details will be incoming, I'm sure. But Jim, with his closing remarks, announced that we're targeting Wednesday, September the 27th for a State House rally. So take the day off, get ready to go. We're going to descend on the State House and let them know that this is nonsense.
Yeah,
we're not going to stand for it.
Bring Bruin to Boston.
That's the message. That's the message. We're finally going to say enough of this defensive stuff. It's time to turn the tables around. Time to turn the tide.
Yeah,
and go on the offensive.
On the offensive.
Yep, we're on the offensive.
No more
now.
waiting for them to
attack us.
To attack and say, hey, you have to respect this court decision. No, this decision is here. It is written.
That's right. It is time for you people to start listening to what the Supreme Court said. That is the law of the land, no matter what your temper tantrum says. Excellent stuff. Time to go on the offense. on Wednesday, September the 27th at the State House Rally. Watch goal.org. Watch Goal's Facebook page.
Watch
listen
the
to
emails.
us, pay attention to your Friday news. Yes, absolutely pay attention to your Friday news. Listen to the podcast. Follow us. Follow Goal on Twitter, on NES, everywhere. Okay, we're going to be getting the word out. But mark your calendars. It's going to be cool. So before we roll out, I'm usually the guy that has like the weird guns and the forgotten weapon stuff, but you got one this time.
I love that guy.
Oh, he's awesome.
Ian
He's
McCollum,
awesome.
call him Gun Jesus.
I emailed him to see if I get him to come to the rally. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to. But yes, I got an email contact with him.
Yeah, but if you ever thought you were a gun nerd,
oh my God, this dude.
this is the guy. But yeah, he had a video. I was watching it, talking about the rifle accuracy of firearms in movies, and particularly the sniper rifle that was depicted in the movie Saving Private Ryan.
Okay, so set the stage. This is the sniper rifle that that kid used in the bell tower.
Right. So in the movie, if you haven't seen it, I can't imagine it.
I'm sure everybody's seen it.
Phenomenal movie, but
I forget the character's name.
Private Jackson.
Private Jackson, that's him.
Played by Barry Pepper.
Barry Pepper, yes. Okay.
But he is the sniper for that group.
Yep. And in the scene, he's up in the bell tower.
Shooting at the storming of Omaha Beach. He takes out the German sniper in the bell tower, and then he has the scene at the end where they're battling the Germans for the bridge.
And he picks off the scene where he picks off the dude by shooting him through his own optic.
Yes,
that was through his own scope. Yeah, that was cool.
Arguable whether or not that is actually possible.
It's a movie.
But again, why let facts get in the way of a good story? That movie was really, such a phenomenal movie for historical accuracy and for the work that was put into it.
I've heard stories about when the movie was released, World War II veterans who went and saw it and like couldn't stay during the Omaha Beach scene because it was too real. And they're like, I can't, this brings me back 70 years. I can't do this. So it's like well known for its accuracy in the way that they portrayed the battle scenes.
If you want any sort of, I don't even know how someone could envision it today, but if you're at the beach and imagine having to run up a giant hill covered in machine gun nests.
Yeah, right.
Being
fired upon
from an elevated position on a pre-sighted in range.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
There is no advantage there, yeah.
But the rifle he used, and this was accurate, Springfield M1903A4.
Yep.
This is the level of historical accuracy they went with the rifle. The rifle used in the movie had no front sight, which would have been correct.
For that period,
for that particular thing. What he was saying was incorrect was the scope that was on the rifle in the movie was incorrect. It was a Lyman Alaskan scope instead of a Weaver 330.
I love this freaking nerd stuff. It's so awesome.
Super nerd.
So it should have been the Weaver 330.
Should have been a Weaver 330, but also so that bell tower scene where he shoots the German sniper.
Yep.
He swaps out scopes for one called an Unertl 8-power fixed magnification scope.
Okay. Which
that scope was used by the Marine Corps, not the Army. It had different mounting points. They weren't interchangeable the way it was presented in the movie with that. And little things like he's saying he's adjusting 2 clicks for windage when he's adjusting the parallax on the
he's
on the scope.
Parallax knob and like the nerds go, oh, this is literally unwatchable. This movie's terrible.
And there were questions about operating a right-handed bolt as a left-handed shooter, which he was in the movie.
Yeah.
Reaching over the gun and whether or not that was an appropriate technique when most people would just use their...
Right. They would just cycle it with
their right hand, which would be on that side of the gun.
Right.
Where that may have actually been accurate is, the use of a sling was something that was taught at that time.
Right.
So if he was shooting that gun right-handed, his right arm would have been resting in that sling.
It would have been locked in the sling.
And principles of marksmanship, you wouldn't want to be swimming your arm out of that sling to cycle the bolt to then have to settle into that shooting position. So you would use the opposite hand.
Sure. Yeah, you just use your
So that was arguably historically accurate as a shooting technique that would have potentially been used under battle conditions.
That's pretty cool.
But it kind of got me thinking, and I wanted to get your opinion on it, is how important Do you think accuracy is not accuracy isn't shooting accuracy,
right?
But
That's okay.
The accuracy of how firearms are portrayed in movies.
Right. We're not talking about marksmanship here. We're talking about,
and not
that gun wasn't invented in 1987 and,
Yeah, not so much the scope stuff, but just as a broad stroke.
If as a gun guy, if I see things that are obvious to me, I go, oh, well, come on, that's not right. But it doesn't like really knock me out of the movie or anything. I'm like, it's freaking Hollywood. Of course they're going to get stuff wrong, So it's not a deal killer for me if it's already a good movie. I will say, though, that I have a bias if I'm watching a movie or a show or something that is like blatantly anti-gun and they start getting crap wrong, that irritates me. If you're trying to push a political message, you goddamn better be right. But other than that, I get a chuckle, but I move on. It doesn't really knock me out of the experience. What about you?
Depends on what story are you trying to tell. If it's if we're talking, Vice News and, they're the dangers of assault weapons. And, oh my God, I shot it once and had PTSD.
Yeah, right.
That when they don't have technical accuracy with firearms, that bothers me. Yeah. Because they're trying to portray it as true.
Yes. Yeah, right.
But when
it's not just a prop anymore, it's like a character.
Like I saw a trailer for The Expendables 4. I'm already buying in that Dolph Lundgren is running around the world and killing people. And
you're right. Right.
And they're throwing boot knives hundreds of feet and hitting someone in the eye. So that, I don't care. Like, don't shoot as many rounds as you want without reloading.
Oh, that dude pulled a Glock 7 on me, right? Right? From Die Hard. Doesn't show up on X-Ray. It costs more than you make in a month.
Well, my problem with that is I have actually heard someone repeat that in a gun shop to a person that asked a question about a Glock.
Oh my God.
And it wasn't a
kidding.
facetious thing.
And it was not like ironic. They were being serious.
Talking about it as if that was the history of the gun.
Oh, it's a porcelain gun made in Germany. I love that line because it's like how every single thing about that line is wrong. Like everything is wrong.
You ever dropped a porcelain dinner plate?
Yeah, what happened?
Not going to handle 50,000 PSI. It was interesting. Yeah, great video. It's worth watching. I think you would enjoy it.
Yeah, it's cool. I love that. Like, you get down to the details. Like, the mounting pattern on that. Actually, the mounting pattern on that scope is different from that.
Well, so
but it's fun though. It's awesome.
But interestingly, so I mean, those videos and Forgotten Weapons is about the education. It's not. Yes. It wasn't meant to pick apart.
Right. It's not about being like pedantic and insufferable and all that stuff. Yeah. It's about like nerding out on gun history.
Yeah, and I don't think it was a poke at the people who filmed the movie, because I mean the Lyman Alaskan, that was I guess if I remember the video correctly, that was the scope that the Army wanted, but they ended up going with the Weaver for cost reasons or whatever.
Yeah, remembering your history now.
That was a period correct scope.
Like whatever. I mean, they didn't put an ACOG on the top of the.
I'll have to show you this other scope that he swapped out. That Unertl 8 power scope.
Okay.
Pretty interesting stuff.
Right on. I will check that out. Yeah, before we roll out, goose season's coming up starting next week.
I'll be out there Monday.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get out on the 18th with you if I can. I got a couple things to check. Yeah, there's some events coming up. Obviously, we're keeping a real close eye on 4420. Check out gold.org. Check Facebook, social media, everywhere. Rally video has been recut and released, so if you want to check that out, it's on social media. We're going to put like a highlights reel together. So the event was awesome, but remember to mark your calendars for Wednesday the 27th, because now it's serious. We're gonna get the word out and show up on their doorstep. So remember to be an advocate, call your legislators, do all the things. Still important because this is coming back.
That's it for today. Thanks for listening in. Be sure to subscribe to the Goal Podcast and check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Gun Owners Action League. We're on Twitter at Goal Update.
To join Goal, visit goal.org and click the Join Renew button right at the top of the homepage.
you have a topic you think we should cover, if there's something going on in your club or town, or if you have a question for the mailbag, shoot us an email at goalpodcast@goal.org.
The Goal Podcast is a production of Gun Owners Action League of Massachusetts. The views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of Goal, its staff, or affiliates.